Hey everyone, welcome to Video Game Design, and in this tutorial we are going to be adding a health bar to our character as well as a means of our character to take damage. Let's get started. You're going to want to be on the third person blueprint, so just make sure you have that selected and then click Create Project. Once that is done, it's going to open up your third person mode. You can immediately play it if you'd like and just run around with your character, but there's no health bar as you can see, and there's no way of taking damage on this stage unless you jump over the wall over there. So I'm going to press escape, and the first thing we're going to do is add the health variable to our character. So to do this, you want to click on your character and have it selected. So like my character here is selected, and you want to right click, go to Browse to Asset, and it will open up the location of your character on the bottom over here. As you can see, my character is over there. I'm going to zoom out just a little bit. So I held down Control and I zoomed out just so I could see that a little bit better. And now I'm going to double click on that to open up the blueprint for my character. So by default, it has a lot of things already created. That's what gives my character movement and the ability to jump and all that other great things this character can do by default. But if you want to add something new, you got to either add a component or add a new type of variable or blueprint, so on and so forth. So that's what we're going to do. On the side here, I'm going to go to Add New and then Variable. On the new variable name, I'm going to call it Health. And then I'm going to click away. And by default, it's set to a Boolean. A Boolean is either true or false, but our character can have multiple states of life. So we're actually going to change it from a Boolean over to a float. Okay, so I changed that to a float, and that's just a number between 1 and 100 or something, or 0 and 1. So we're going to compile this, and then that's going to give us a default value for our health. And we're going to just say 1. Okay, and there's a reason for that, which I'll explain later. Okay, I'm going to compile it again. Everything looks good at this point. So I'm going to close out of the third person character blueprint. Okay, now I'm going to go to the content folder, and I'm going to create something that's going to just remain on the screen, and those are called widgets. So I'm going to right click on this gray space here, go to New Folder, and then type in widget. Okay, and I'm going to double click on the widget folder. I'm going to right click on the gray space again, go to User Interface, and we're going to create a widget blueprint. Okay, I'm going to name this HUD for Heads Up Display, and then I'm going to double click on that. Okay, so by default, this is your screen, or this is a way you can imagine your screen space and how it's being utilized. And we're going to add a couple things. So one of the things we're going to add is a progress bar. Okay, and you can just grab that from the side and drag it over. And we can adjust the color of this progress bar by going to the Appearance, Fill Color, select that, change the color of it, and press OK. But it doesn't show up here because we need to fill up the percentage. So it's at 0 right now, but you can actually drag that, and you can notice that the progress bar fills up. So it goes from 0 to 1, 1 being maximum. Okay, we're also going to grab some text. So I'm going to drag a text block here, and for the text block text, I'm just going to write 100 over 100 health, and of course you can change that amount should you see fit. But I'm going to drag that over the progress bar. Okay, so now that the two things have been created, it's time to link these to our heads-up display and our viewport, and then set them so that they can actually function with our character. So we're going to do some base blueprint coding. First of all, select the progress bar behind the number, and then we're going to bind it. So look for %. We're going to bind it, and we're going to create a binding. Okay, this is what we get by default. It's just a get %, the start and the end of the program. There's nothing in here, so it's just right now just a bar. So let's get a few things. So If you right click on the gray area, you'll have the ability to search for things. So the first thing we're going to search for is cast to third person character. Okay, cast the third person character, and we're just going to link this to that. Okay, I'm going to right click again, and we're going to get player character. So that's what we need. Select that, and that's our object. Okay, so we link that. So we're taking our percentage and we're taking our character and we're kind of combining them together. And then we're going to associate our health with this bar as well. So I'm going to drag a bar off here and type get health and select that. So now it gets our health, and we're going to link the health as our return value, and this we're going to link to there so it actually returns. Okay, so this is what the program looks like. We are binding our character to our health bar, and then we're associating the health variable with the health bar, and then we're returning that all. So compile that, should work, and then we're going to close out of this. And if you run your game right now, you're going to notice that that's great. We did bind the health bar to the character, but it's not showing up on the level. And that's because we also have to do some adding to the level blueprint. So everything has a blueprint, including the level. So I'm going to press escape. Up here is in blueprints. I'm going to go to open level blueprint. Okay. And then this is not, there should be nothing on this screen. So levels typically begin with some kind of an event. So I'm just going to do a search for an event called begin play. Okay, this just means when the game starts, you want something to happen. So another way you can generate blocks is you can just drag off the previous block and then you can let go. And we're going to create a widget. So go to create widget. Okay, and that will select that. We will change the class to our heads up display. And then we are going to drag over here and we're going to add it to our viewport. So just go to add to viewport. Okay, and that will generate that. It's already generating on self, so that's good. And then we're going to combine this to there. Okay, we're going to compile that. It looks like it compiled just fine. So close out of that. And when you hit play for your game, you should notice that your health bar now is in the game. And it sticks around with your viewport. And if you don't like its location, you can move it on your HUD and it will move it there as well. Okay, so now that we have health, we need a way of taking damage. So I'm going to go ahead, press escape, go back to the content folder, and right-clicking and creating a new folder. Okay, and let's just call this folder obstacles, although you can call it whatever you want. This is just going to be things that can cause damage. So this is my obstacles folder. I'm going to open this up. I'm going to right-click on this gray space here, and I'm going to create a new blueprint class. Okay, you got some options to select from. In this case, we're just going to select an actor. So select an actor and then call this something like spikes. Okay, so this could be spikes in your game, and if you ran over there, you know, you would take damage because you walked on spikes or something. Okay, I'm going to click away from it, and then I'm going to double click on it to enter the view of the spikes. So by default, you usually have like a viewport, construction script, and event graph. Now, just depending on where you're on, like if I closed out of this spikes and then I opened it up again, it looks like this. Now, don't freak out because you lost your tabs. You just have to click open full blueprint editor and it will open it back up so you can see all three of your views on this. So this is the original object. Right now it doesn't have a hitbox, so we're going to add one of those in. Over here where it says add component, click on that and drag down to where it says box collision. We're going to select that and it puts a box around your character. This is your hitbox. It means if your character enters this box, they could potentially take damage. Or if you fired at this character later on the game and it entered this box, then they would potentially take damage. It's pretty broad right now. That's perfectly fine. We'll talk about later how to adjust that. But for its default name, let's change it from box to hitbox. So now this is a hitbox element, and I'm going to select that. And then on the side, I'm going to scroll down to our events. And we got a lot of events. They're a little hard to see right now, but if you like hover over that like division, you can like stretch that out so you can actually read what they're supposed to be. And if this is a spike, we want it that when our character, touches the spike, then they get damaged. So that's an on component begin overlap. It means the components have overlapped, so something should happen. Okay, so I'm going to click there, and it's going to take us to the event graph now for our character. It has some nodes up here that we don't really need at the moment, so I'm just going to select those and press the delete key on the keyboard, and now those ones are gone. And now we're going to start building our our collision. Okay, so first go cast to third person character. Okay, once again, that will be connected to here, and the other actor is our character. It's like the only actor also. So yeah, drag that over to over there, and then it's what do we want to happen to our character? Well, when our character goes over the box, we want them to take damage. So I'm going to drag out over here. I'm going to say get health. Okay, so they're going to take damage. Okay, the health is going to go down. So remember, the health is a float. So I'm going to drop it over there, and I'm going to type in the minus sign and then float. So we're subtracting the float. So that's float minus float over here. Select that, and this is a percentage over here. So if we want to subtract all the health, we would put 1. But if we wanted to subtract like 10% or 5% of the health, then we'd have to write like 0.1 or 0.05. So this is percentage based. So just keep that in mind when I type like 0.1 over here. Okay, so we're losing 10% of our health every time we collide with this object. Okay, and then we're going to drag it over to set health. But it's not showing up from there, it looks like, probably because it needs to be dragged from the correct instance. So over here where it's like as third person character, that's the one we drag, and then we do set health. Yep, and there's set health. Okay, so it has to be dragged off one of the blue ones, and then we're going to adjust that over there. We're going to link the health back, and then we're going to run the executable. Okay, so the white line's kind of like the path it takes, going from here to here to here, and then the blue lines and the green lines are what's happening in between. So it's just like going to run in a loop, but it's also, what's the object? And okay, that's its health, sure. So what happens when they collide? Well, it loses 10% of the health. So now we're at 90 health, and then it sets the health. So our new health is 90. Okay, so I'm going to compile that, close out of this, and we're going to throw on a couple of these spikes over here. So I'm just going to put a spike right at the staircase over there, as well as maybe another spike like over here. Okay, so they're going to currently appear invisible, but they are there. You just got to kind of trust me on that. And I'm going to run over, and you can see when I run over the objects, I take damage, okay, until I have no more life left. Okay, so that works, but the number itself is currently at 100 over 100, so we need to adjust that as well. So I'm going to press escape and head back over to our heads up display. So remember, content folder, go to widget, and then heads up display, double click on that, and then go over to the number. So select the number and look for the text area, and there's an ability to bind the text. So that's what we're going to do. We're going to go to bind and create a binding. And it's very similar to how it was before. We're just going to use a little bit more this time. So right click, cast to third person character. Okay, we're going to connect that, and our object is going to be our player. So get player character. There we go. That's our object. Connect that to there. Okay, now as a third person character, what we're going to do is we're going to once again get our health. Okay. And remember, our health currently is a float. Okay, a float is a number. But what we need to do is we need to convert it to text. Okay, because on the screen it's showing text. Even if it shows a number, it's showing like the text of the number. And then we also, text is only like a word or something. We need to combine it into a thing called a string. And a string is a series of words. So there's a couple more steps involved instead of just like the prog. So just kind of bear with me. So we're going to take the number, move over here, and we're going to write to text, okay, float, okay. So this converts it over to text. Now we're going to combine this into a string. So I'm going to drag off the return value, and I'm going to turn off context sensitive, or else it's not going to show up for you. And you're going to type in append. Okay, and it's the string append over here. Okay, so you'll select that. It'll create 2 nodes this time. I'm going to drag those over. And we are going to add a few things here. So for B, you're going to do space, and then a division sign and space. Okay, and then we're going to add a pin, and we're going to put whatever you want your life to be over. So if you want it to be over 100, you'd do 100. If you want it to be 200, you'd do 200. But I'm going to say 100 to be consistent with my health, and we can edit that later on if we needed to. Okay, and then we're going to drag that over to the return value, and you'll notice that it converts it back over to a string. So that's all in place over there. The only thing we probably want to add is our health is currently at like points, or is at 1. It's not at 100. So we probably want to multiply our health before we run it into the text box. So if we drag off health over here, we could do a multiply float. So do the star sign by holding Shift 8, and then type float, multiply float, and it's float times float, this one. So select that, and then you're going to drag that one to here. Okay, so that's going to be the connection for that one. And then it goes to the end, and then we want this all to execute, so we're going to connect that to there. So it's all executing and everything's set. I'm going to click compile. It looks good, so I'm going to close out of that, and now I'm going to play my level, and almost got there, but as you can see, we have 0 over 100. So the reason why it probably did that is if I go back to my heads up display, select the number, and go to function, go back to here. For the float, I multiplied it by 0. Then I forgot to put a number there. So, if we're multiplying anything by 0, it will be 0. But you want to multiply it by 100 because your health was 1, so 1 times 100 is 100 health. Okay, so compile that one more time, close out of that, and build. And now when you run over, you'll notice that your health decreases as well as your health bar. Okay? So that's going to complete this tutorial. If you have any questions, feel free to let me know. Otherwise, I will see you in the next tutorial where we will talk about death and reanimation. Okay, see you later. Peace.